Hello fellow Dicers, this is going to be a bit different. Most of you will probably not know that I absolutely love the Dynasty Warriors series. I've played every single one, including the not very good Dynasty Warriors 9. Sorry if you like it, it was not something I enjoyed very much. So when I heard Dynasty Warriors Origins was coming out, I was a little bit... not anxious, but a little bit nervous. I was hoping it was going to be something that I could look forward to. But because of Dynasty Warriors 9, I didn't feel that that was going to happen. Now, the game releases in January 2025, so I was very surprised to find a demo already on the PlayStation Store. And as such, I decided to give it a go and to give it a quick first look stroke review for you guys. Now, the settings are interesting, especially the difficulty setting. Now, the difficulty setting starts you off on, I think it's called Wanderer difficulty, Wayfarer difficulty. And that's basically the standard difficulty of the game. There is one called Hero, and when you go through the description of what Hero does, it basically says that your perfect parry window and your perfect dodge window are reduced. Enemies will attack you together more often, so simultaneously. And it basically makes it sound more like a Souls-like experience. Now that's probably doing it a disservice because, you know, it's very easy to label something as Souls-like just because it has parry and dodge mechanics. But I'm using that in the term of it's making it more of a timing-based game, whereas Dynasty Warriors was always more of a hack and slash. So I'm obviously doing post-recording voiceover here, so I know what's going to happen in this particular video on screen. What I don't want to do is spoil it, because I want you to watch the whole thing, selfishly. But one thing that I will say straight away is the fact that they have gone back to actual cutscenes. One of my biggest complaints with Dynasty Warriors 9 was that whenever you were in a cutscene, it was in-game graphics, as in you were literally your character on the floor spinning round to talk to other people. There were none of these pre-generated CGI style cutscenes at all, and that was extremely disappointing for me. Now, I'm not going to say these are the best cutscenes you will ever see, because they're definitely not. There are better graphics in other games. However, I believe these are going back to the roots of Dynasty Warriors. The character models are very similar to what you would have got in the past. I do think they are a little bit cartoony, but I don't think that's a bad thing. And the reason I think that is because it gives them leeway in their design choices. They have obviously done it extremely stylized, and that is not a problem. Now, I don't know whether you're going to be able to see this on screen, because if you're watching this on a TV, for example, that's going to have a refresh rate of 24 Hz, unfortunately. If you're watching it on a monitor, you might be limited to 60. You might have a brilliant one that has frame rates in the hundreds. This is recorded 4K 120 Hz native on the PlayStation 5 Pro. Now, playing it was extremely impressed. Now obviously that's a CGI cutscene, so it's not really telling you much. But what's on screen now is actually in-game. So the CGI cutscene compared to the actual in-game models are extremely close. And I was extremely impressed with that, and that's one of the reasons I don't think necessarily the cartoony graphics are a problem, because it does allow them to have cutscenes and in-game graphics very close to each other in terms of detail. Now don't get me wrong, you can do that in other games with better graphics. I think the Horizon series is a perfect example of that, but that's specifically made by a company that is owned by the manufacturer of the hardware. So you're always going to have a better understanding of the architecture and more support in making your game. This, I think, is a perfect example of how a third party can still do it well. Now, just to give you a bit of an overview, the Dynasty Warriors series in general has allowed you to play a protagonist who is a very well-known historical figure. And I say well-known, it's well-known in the sort of realm of the Three Kingdoms period of China. So you would play as one of the generals who existed at that time. You're talking on screen at the moment to Cao Cao, who was one of the major generals. You do not play as those in this game. You don't play as them in the slightest. You play as the Wayfarer or Wanderer. I can never remember which one it is, but I believe it's the Wayfarer, the character on screen there. And at least in the demo, you do not get the option to create your own character. Now, the series has had character creators before, but they've been hit and miss, if I'm being honest. Whereas this, you kind of start with a character, and it allows you to pick which weapon type you want to use, from a limited pool, at least in the demo. Now, you get to play one mission. It's the Battle of Sishui Gate, and anyone who has played Dynasty Warriors before knows this battle very, very well. It's the first battle you will experience or encounter Lu Bu, who is the strongest character in the game. Now, as I said at the beginning, I have played every single game in this series, and when I saw this map popped up, I was ridiculously overjoyed, because it's going back to the original style map. It's not an open world like Dynasty Warriors 9 was, it's going back to a set battle map. So you're not just wandering around the environment trying to do things, which could have been good, but wasn't executed very well. This has gone back to a more linear, you go around a specific battlefield. And to be honest, I always think that method works better for this type of game. It's a little bit different than normal, and I'm not going to go into huge comparisons here, simply because I don't think it's right to do that on the demo, because it does say at the beginning that this might be different from the final product, and to be honest, I think it possibly will be. There are a few things that, as I said, limited weapons, for example, that I don't think they'll be able to do when it comes to the final game. However, the general setup, I believe, will be the same. You will have your character, you will have a selection of weapons, you'll have a selection of consumables to take, such as meat buns and things like that. You will have a talisman or an accessory. In these games, you never get to change your armor, which I do find to be a little bit upsetting, because I would like to be able to change the look of the character completely. So when you start at the lowest level, for example, you will have just almost peasant's garb, but when you get to maximum level, you could end up with proper noble warrior's garb. I think that would be amazing. Now, the Wanderer here has got rank level 29, and quite high health, high attack and high defense. Also has proficiency 8 in all of the different weapon types you have the ability of. Now, do not get me wrong, I do not believe that will be the same in the final game in the slightest. So I would expect you're going to end up with a character at Sishui Gate, probably at rank 2 or 3, maybe. We will find out. Now, a system that I just jumped over, you will see in the game, but just as a little bit of a background, you actually have a unit that you can command in this particular game, and it's kind of like you would find in Dragon Age Inquisition, where you can command your squad to do certain activities. Now, the problem with that, which I didn't realise when I was playing this game, is when you summon them, they can die. So it's not just a quick activate them, somebody rushes in and you're all done. This is very much a, you activate them, they rush in, they have a fight, they die, and then you can't use the ability again. So I'm hoping you can actually level them up as you go. You also have the option to have a companion. Now, I've selected Guan Yu simply because I think Guan Yu is amazing and he was the best one of the ones that I could select. Hopefully you will end up with more of those in the future. Now, I don't know whether you remember, when I first started, I set this to 4K 120 Hertz. And I don't know whether you can see on this screen, but it is extremely smooth. Whether it's 120 Hertz or 120 frames per second, I don't know. But it's definitely higher than the original Dynasty Warriors games, which were all at 30 frames per second. So the flow of this game is ridiculous, and the fact it does appear to be native 4K is absolutely amazing. Now, I said before about the Souls-like experience, and the fact that if you play it on Hero, it says it reduces the parry window, etc. I must say, I believe the parry window is in all difficulties. I think it is just more forgiving in the earlier ones. So I'm playing the middle difficulty, and you can perfect parry and perfect evade. And to be honest, you will need to do that, because I ended up dying a lot in this particular game. Not necessarily dying as in I have finished the mission, although I did at the end of the mission, which I will not show you on this because I didn't get there when I was recording this. But I ended up dying to some of the bosses at the end because my perfect parry was not good enough. I also ended up dying, or ending the mission. I shouldn't use the term dying. I also ended up ending the mission because I hadn't protected the leader of our forces correctly. It's a pretty unique system that this game employs when that happens. Instead of just saying, sorry, your mission's finished, go home, it basically says, do you want to restart or rebuild the battle? Now, if you select rebuild the battle, it goes step by step through exactly what's happened. So you can see exactly where the battle went wrong. Now, that's really useful, because once you do that, you can see where in the battle the biggest mistake was made. When you then click restart, you can restart from a certain point in the battle. You don't have to restart right from the beginning. And there are certain checkpoints in the battle that you can select. And if you select the one just before something went wrong, you have a chance of rectifying it. And that, I think, is a brilliant system. Now, as you can see, if you have played Dynasty Warriors before, you have this lovely system where you have battles all over the map. Red means an enemy, blue means an ally, and if it's flashing red, it means the enemy is winning because that's a battle area. So you can select on the map where you need to go. Now, I was more interested in just seeing what the combat was like at this stage, so I wasn't really paying attention to the map. But I don't know whether you can see the swords in the middle of the map there, but they are basically indicating there is a big battle going on, and two bosses or two generals are fighting. Now, they're all at the moment glowing red, and that basically means whoever of our forces are in there are losing, and that's not good, because the more they lose, the more your force's morale drops, and the more your morale drops, the more damage you take and the less damage you deal. So you definitely don't want your morale to drop low. Now, I'll give you a little bit of info. I wasn't keeping an eye on this, as I said, so when I did come to the end fight, our morale was practically zero. So I was taking an absolute load of damage and dealing none. Hence why I lost. I also wasn't really up on the mechanics of this game because they are extremely different to any of the Dynasty Warriors before. Case in point, before you had heavy attack, light attack and Muso attack. That was basically it. You could use attack techniques in the later ones, especially Dynasty Warriors 9, but the previous ones were very much a case of heavy, light and Muso. That was it. This one includes lots of different techniques. As I said, you have your squad that you can summon in. At this stage I had 19 out of my 21 squad left, so I could have used my abilities. But also I have some specific attacks. So R1 plus triangle, square or X will do a special attack. R1 plus circle does a counter attack. and I wasn't really sure what that was at the time. So whenever you see the enemy glow orange and have an orange circle around them, I am supposed to press R1 and circle to counter it. Again, I didn't know, so I wasn't doing it, and that was causing me a lot of problems. Now, one of the other things that was interesting to note from the demo was that the enemy can also use squad tactics, and they do quite frequently. So as far as difficulty is concerned, Dynasty Warriors Origin is definitely a more difficult game than the others. If you want to go for a Dynasty Warriors walk around the battlefield, kill thousands of people and go home and have a cup of tea, then you need to put it on the easiest difficulty. Trust me, the middle one is still very hard. That being said, I still think it's absolutely brilliant. Now, I need to learn the systems because I do not know what the telegraph of enemy fights or attacks is. In most of these types of games, there is a flash or something on the screen that basically says, press parry now. I haven't seen these in this at all. So I think what you have to do is you have to actually time their attack. And that is extremely difficult because you're going on visual cues. And the visual cues that aren't a glowing ring or a glowing set of lightning bolts above their head, a la Arkham Asylum, a lot of them are covered by the enemy soldiers. And when they're covered by the enemy soldiers, you really do have to pay attention. But I'm going to leave this quick look there. It's obviously something I'm really interested in when it does come out in January. But hopefully you have found this video useful and interesting anyway, and given you a bit of an insight into the game. So, thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you have enjoyed it, please make sure you do subscribe to the channel. Click the like button and leave me a comment down below. And yeah, hopefully I will see you in Dynasty Warriors when it finally releases in January. You all take care. Bye for now.